Brill. Okay, so thank you for everyone joining today. I'm really looking forward to this, to be honest. As I was saying to the guys before the webinar, finances and money is such an important subject, and people have so many different views on it and spending habits. It's going to be really interesting to hear from the expert team. Obviously, it's all about helping young professionals manage their finances. So I'm really hoping that you can help me manage mine. I think that'd be great. Just to run through some of the events we have coming up for the Future Faces. In mid-May, we've got a Future Faces social networking. I think that's on our new platform Wonder. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, then I would. It's almost like it's as near as we can get to being in a room without actually being in a room with each other. On the 18th of May, it's the second part of the Aston Business School Leadership Series. I did the first part a couple of weeks ago and found it really interesting. This one's all about how to manage underperforming employees. And on the 27th of May, we've got a webinar on making sustainability the focus. And I think that's a big topic around the corporate world at the minute. And just the final, before I pass it on, I just want to say on behalf of the Future Faces Committee and everyone on the committee, we are a supporting body. So if you do want to reach out or you've got any questions, then please do feel free to. Obviously, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. I think it's the 10th of May. So, there is a lot of awareness around mental health. So if you are struggling, or you have been struggling, or you'd like to share anything, then please do let us know. I'm going to stop talking now and pass it on to the people that have actually got some expert knowledge. So take it away, guys.
Thanks, Graham. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen, get the presentation up. Is that all okay? Thumbs up. Can you see that? Great. Well, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on financial resilience for young professionals. My name is Lucy Minton and I'm Business Development Director at Tilney Birmingham, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues Tom Cadwallader, who is an investment manager, and Khaled Hawash, who is a financial planner. So just a bit of important information that our compliance department insists that we show before we kick off. So obviously just to be aware that obviously everything we talk about is not intended to constitute advice or a recommendation, and you should not take any investment decision based on its content. And obviously our opinions may change without notice. So that's the compliance part out of the way. Before we get stuck in, just to give you a bit of background as to who Tilney are, or I should say now Tilney Smith and Williamson, post a merger last year. We provide financial planning, investment management and tax and accountancy services to clients right across the wealth spectrum. So whether you're just starting out on your investment journey or you're an ultra high net worth client with complex planning needs, then we have solutions that can help. The roots of our heritage can actually be traced back to 1836, so we're very proud of our history, but prouder still that today we're trusted to manage just close to 50 billion of assets on behalf of our clients. We work alongside solicitors, accountants, corporate finance houses, sports and media agents and mortgage providers, as often wealth management works in conjunction with these other areas of professional advice. I just want to emphasise that the webinar today, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, okay? So it's about planning for your retirement. It's thinking about your goals, working towards those goals in a way that is manageable for you. And I think after, we've all had a bit of a big life lesson over the past year that we need to be prepared for the unexpected, and feeling financially secure can really help our overall well-being. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Khaled.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Lucy. It's important early in your career to set up your financial foundations and educating yourself. For the rest of this presentation, Tom and I are going to be highlighting some of the important areas to focus on, which include, how to save and invest, how ISAs and pensions can work for you, and putting together an appropriate protection plan to make sure that you can give yourself the chance to meet your goals when things don't work out. During the middle of your career, in the middle box, finances typically get more complicated, with tax planning becoming more complex, and maximizing your savings inside and outside of your pensions will increasingly become important for later years. And when you start to prepare for your retirement, whether that's completely stopping work or phasing into retirement by reducing your days, you need a solid financial plan. And Tilney support clients with this period in their lives with cash flow modeling, where we take into account all of their assets to help them to manage their finances in retirement, any inheritance tax that they might be due, and also long-term care. Tom will now talk about planning for your future life events, which is quite a key point to discuss.
Thank you, Khaled, and hello, everyone. In the early stages of our career, we still have most of life's key events ahead of us. For example, you may wish to purchase a home in the future, start a family, get married, and at some point, retire. In order to be able to afford to do these things, it's important to ensure that we understand the expense that they are likely to incur and to begin to save in order to actually be able to afford them. The earlier that we start to think about these events, the easier it will be for us to prepare for them. But in order for us to save for these events, we need to ensure that we have our more mundane finances under control. We all have monthly outgoings such as rent, food, and utility bills that we have to pay. But of course, we also want to enjoy our lives, and so spend money on entertainment, the pub now we're allowed to again, and in normal times, going abroad on holiday. In our experience, those people who earn good salaries accumulate more and more expenses without even realizing it. We're not saying that you shouldn't spend your hard-earned money, but have you proactively thought about where each pound you do spend goes? Are you still paying the monthly subscription for an iPhone app that you no longer use? That's a classic example, and I'm terrible of it. But tidying up things like that can have a surprisingly large impact. Actively choosing where your money is spent is very different to just spending your money. We recommend having a look through your bank statement and tracking how much you spend in certain areas. Are there any places that you can make some small savings? But all of the spending that we do is predicated upon the idea that we will continue to earn an income. But what if we're not able to? We should protect that. And Khaled's going to speak more on that now.
Thanks, Tom. What amazes me in that in today's world, we've got people that insure their car, insure their phones, insure their tablets, insure a washing machine, but they don't protect the income that pays for these goods and their own lives that enable them to obtain this income, which is surely more important than the material goods themselves. Income protection is an insurance policy that provides an income in the event of an accident or a long-term sickness, so you can continue to run your house and meet your outgoings. Life cover pays income to your family or a lump sum to pay off the mortgage, for example, in the event of your death. So that whoever you leave left behind has got less things to worry about if you're no longer there. And critical illness can provide a lump sum to give you some breathing space to take care of yourself in such an event of suffering a critical illness. My tip is to check with your employer and see what they offer you. Typically, employers offer a death in service, which is an insurance policy that will pay a lump sum on your death. They offer a pension. And also, if they don't offer these benefits, you need to seriously consider putting these things in place. And this is something that Tilney can help you with. So please do approach us about it. Let's now talk a bit more about the three-stage approaches to saving your disposable income. Now, once you've sorted out your day-to-day expenditure and your protection. Once we've got all of that sorted out, it's important to get things sorted for unforeseen circumstances for finances. So start thinking about saving and preparing for this, as well as preparing for key life events that are coming down the road. We think you should consider savings in three different pots. The first is to build an emergency fund that will cover unexpected expenditure. So for example, if your car was to break down and you need to get that repaired, or if you lost your job. General wisdom is to have 3 to 6 months of your 3 to 6 months of your income and typical expenditure, so that in the event that if you do lose your job, you would have time to find another whilst having the peace of mind that you can continue to pay the bills for some time. As you will need these savings at any time, they should be kept in cash in instant access bank accounts. With regards to the next section, for key events that may happen in the next 3 years or so, such as saving a deposit to buy a house or a car, you should consider continue to hold these monies in savings accounts. You should consider fixed time savings though, as they offer typically higher interest rates than instant access ones. You will still be requiring the money in relatively soon, and so you should be ensuring that the cash will be there when you need it. Lastly, for anything that's longer than 5 years, perhaps, you should consider investing, and Tom's going to go on to that shortly. We'll be talking about ISAs and pensions shortly. A pension is a pot of money that you're not allowed to access for maybe 30 years or so, depending on how young you are. So you should look to invest in pensions and outside of pensions in a way that will help you and your money work hard for you, rather than it just sitting in a bank account earning little interest without you actually needing to access it. So Tom will now talk about why you should invest for the long term.
Let's start off with the simple question. What is investing? At its most simple level, it's buying assets with the aim of the value of them rising over time, thereby increasing our wealth. There are a wide range of assets to invest in, and do feel free to reach out further to discuss exactly what they all might be, but one example is shares of companies. Over time, the aim is to end up with a pot of money that you're able to draw upon to fund your key life events, or maybe your retirement. I'd now like to move on to show the potential power that developing a saving and investing habit over the course of your career can provide, and the power of compounding growth over a long-term time horizon. It's important that I say the following graphs are all for illustrative purposes, but we'll go through the assumptions we make throughout them all and hopefully show the power of compounding growth and investing. So in this first example, let's assume that you're able to save £100 a month for a total of 40 years. In this example, it's a 25-year-old saving until they're 65 years of age. So a young professional saving until they retire. If you retained these savings as cash and didn't earn any interest on them, by the end of the period, you would have £49,200 saved up. That's a nice chunk of change by anyone's measure. However, over time, prices do steadily rise. A Freddo chocolate bar is the classic example. They used to cost 10p, but now cost 30p. For every 3 that you used to be able to buy, you can now only buy 1. So the purchasing power of money over time decreases. You would actually need £75,132 in 40 years' time, assuming an inflation rate at 2%, to be able to buy the same that £49,000 is able to buy you today. In other words, you would only be able to buy 65% of what you would be able to today with that money. So it's important that over the long term, we try to protect against inflation and hopefully even do a little bit better than it. Now, what if you invested that £100 a month and were able to achieve an average return after all charges of 4% per year? If you could do that, you'd end up with £121,000. That's 2.5 times the amount that you'd have saved if you'd have just held it in cash. Not only would that protect against inflation, you would actually increase your purchasing power over time. Through investing, you would have enhanced your long-term wealth. £100 a month, though, isn't a huge amount to be saving. So what if you could stretch a little bit and save and invest £200 a month? If you could achieve the same net average return of 4% per year, you would end up with £243,000 after the 40 years. That's nearly 5 times the amount you'd have had if you'd have just saved £100 a month and retained it as cash. This is now starting to show the real power of compounding growth. That 4% return each year is achieved on the growth from the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. And so it grows and grows and grows. And whilst the numbers at the beginning aren't massive, they do quickly add up. What if we then went one stage further and considered where we were investing a little bit more and tweaked what we were investing in to hold higher risk assets that offered the potential to earn greater rewards? If you could still save £200 a month, but increase your net average return to 6% per year, you would end up with £406,000 after 40 years. That's 8 times more than you'd have had if you'd have saved just £100 a month as cash. £400,000 is a lot of money and would help you with a lot of those key life events. But it could also help to fund your retirement. In our final example, we've gone crazy. We've gone all out. What if you could save £500 a month and still achieve the 6% average investment return? This is a stretch for anyone with all of our rent and expenditure that we have to do. But if you could manage it, you would have an investment pot at the end of it all of just over £1 million. In our experience, diligent saving and investing over the course of a career is one of the ways that people become very wealthy. You do not have to win the lottery to become a millionaire. You just have to make wise choices and you'll get there little by little. This is why it's a marathon, not a sprint. But this is how powerful compounding and investing can be. Now, of course, we can't just wave a magic wand and choose the investment return that we're going to receive, that 4% or the 6%. Sometimes investments do really well and sometimes they don't. They are volatile assets. But choosing where and how you invest is really important. Investing comes with risk. You're able to take more or less risk in your investments. The basic relationship is that the higher the potential return you're seeking, the more risk that you need to take to achieve it. The risk is that you may not achieve the return and that the value of your investments will likely go up and down quite a lot. So you have to be comfortable with that volatility. As a result, we often think about an individual's ability to take investment risk. Firstly, do you have the capacity to take risk? In other words, how much risk can you afford to take based upon whether you have your essential spending and emergency fund covered? If you have those sorted, perhaps you have the capacity to take a little bit more risk. Your investing time horizon also comes into this. Are you investing for 5 years or 40? You may want to think about the level of risk you take depending on the answer. Your risk tolerance is then a personal question. How do you feel about risk? How much can you tolerate the value of your investments increasing and decreasing? If you can tolerate it a lot, then perhaps you can take some more risk. But if that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps a lower level of risk would be more suitable for you. Your risk need is then how much risk you need to take in order to actually achieve your goals. If you don't need a savings pot of £1 million at the end, why take the extra level of risk to try and achieve it when you can do everything that you want to in life with a lower level of risk, less volatility, and a little bit more certainty? Finally, what would you do in a catastrophe? If your investments fell by a substantial amount, do you still have the ability to do everything that you would like to do? If not, perhaps you shouldn't take too much risk. To illustrate this point, we have a patchwork quilt of assets, different types of things that you can be invested in. You'll see that we've tracked them over the last 10 years to the end of 2019 and tracked one of them. In particular, the grey one, the emerging market shares asset. In 2010, they returned 22.9%. But then in 2011, lost 17.6%. Emerging market shares are an inherently volatile asset. They move up and down a lot, and very few people have the risk tolerance, capacity, and need to only invest in that asset. If I only held it in my investments, I would not be able to sleep at night. And so what people actually do is they hold a diversified range of assets. The idea being that they will be able to smooth out the volatility, but still achieve an attractive level of investment return. And this is what we do at Tilney. We design portfolios of different assets to manage risk, to manage diversification. And so whilst a lot of these assets on the screen probably look a little bit foreign, please do get in contact with us and we'll happily talk through it. Taken together, I hope that these last few slides help to show the power of investing and compounding over the very long term, and how it's able to make a meaningful difference to your wealth and ability to enjoy life in the future. It's about developing those habits early on to benefit in the future. Cal is now going to speak a little bit more on the vehicles that might be available to you today so that you can start to take advantage of investing.
Thanks, Tom. So how can you invest for the future? Firstly, I'll talk about ISAs and follow this up with pensions. ISAs stand for individual savings accounts, and they've been around since the turn of this century. They're a way for the government to encourage the population to save and invest by allowing money in these accounts to be tax efficient, i.e. no tax on income, profits or dividends, which will help your money grow faster. As the government are not taxing these accounts, there is a limit of how much you can save. This is still very generous, as you will have an allowance of £20,000 per tax year, which you can use across the range of different ISAs that are available. These start off with cash ISAs, which are simply savings accounts where interest doesn't attract tax. For monies you allocate for the longer term, a stocks and shares ISA is suitable, as you are able to invest in a variety of assets and aim to grow the money beyond inflation. And for those of you aged between 18 and 40, you can open up a lifetime ISA. These are relatively new accounts where the savings you build can be used for a specific purpose, either a deposit for a home or for your retirement. You can use 4,000 of the £20,000 allowance in a lifetime ISA, and you will receive a bonus of 25% of what you save in that tax year. So for example, £150 bonus, therefore a total of £1,250, and that's before even the money is invested and it's had the potential to grow. Moving on to pensions, they're a bit different. So since we started working and paying national insurance, we've been building up a state pension. Really, the state pension is to pay for the basics in retirement. It's only £179.60 a week nowadays, or just under £9,500 a year. We all aspire to have great retirement, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we can afford this. One of the ways of doing it is most of you have a workplace pension where you and your employer make contribution. One of the most appealing benefits is that contributions you make into your pension attract tax relief, i.e. what you would normally get taxed on your income, whether it's 20 or 40%, is actually given by the government directly to your pension. This money will then grow tax efficiently, very similar to an ISA. Pensions then can be accessed from the age of 55 at the moment, although this is going to increase to 57 from 2028. And 25% of the fund that you build up can be paid to you tax-free, and you can enjoy that in whichever way you wish. The rest can be drawn in whichever way you like, whether that's a further lump sum or a regular income, and they'll both be subject to income tax. So to conclude with regards to pensions, take advantage of your employer pension scheme and make the most of the tax relief, and consider increasing your pension contribution if it's within budget, as some employers may actually increase their contribution into the pension as well. Check your state pension record If you simply search for state pension forecasts and go through the process on the government website, it will tell you if you're on track to get the full state pension or if you need to make any tweaks to it. Also, review those old plans and get them in order. You could actually benefit from consolidating these pensions into one and having a singular investment strategy across the board. Lucy will now go through our top tips from Tilney.
Thanks, Khaled. So yeah, just to summarise what Tom and Khaled have discussed, we've just put some kind of top tips together. So number one, make sure you are protecting the most important financial aspects of your life. So look at those insurance policies. Build that emergency fund to cover those unexpected bills that you might have to pay. Any long-term savings are generally best invested, and that's obviously where Tilney can help. Make full use of those workplace benefits available to you, and especially your workplace pension. And just going back to the first point, as Khaled said, often your workplace will have some kind of income protection or life assurance cover. And finally, consider utilising other tax efficient vehicles. ISAs are a fantastic way of just saving outside of your pension for the longer term and still being able to access when you need to. And I think finally for me, it's never too late to start investing. If I could go back a few years and tell my 25-year-old self some useful advice, it would be to start saving and start investing. As Albert Einstein said, compound interest is certainly the eighth wonder of the world, and I think Tom demonstrated that with his charts earlier on. So I really hope our whistle stop tour has provided some food for thought. Think about what you can be doing in your own kind of finances to think about the longer term and just help improve your overall financial well-being, I guess, for want of a better word. So I think we'll take it to some questions, Graham.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. That was very insightful, and it's just one of those things that, again, it's that refresher, isn't it? It's like, it's a bit of a kick for me to speak to my financial advisor about sorting my ISA out, because it's just been on my to-do list for months, and I think you're just taking me over the edge to get it done. We've got a fair few questions, many from Jag. I think it's worth, if anyone has any questions, please do put them in the Q&A. We can work our way through. I think we've got about 10-15 minutes, so we do have a bit of time. The first one from Jag is, what's your view on the up and coming recession that will likely be created by the hyperinflation according to Dr. Burry? What would be the best things to invest in the recession if it comes through? A nice easy one to start off with.
Yeah, big topic to begin with, and to try and keep this as broad as possible for this webinar. But Jag, very happy to discuss some of the intricacies of what Dr. Burry talks about, who obviously called the 2008 recession pretty perfectly. His contention is that inflation is on the way because of the way that governments around the world have contended with the coronavirus pandemic. They've spent more money, they've created a lot of government debt in order to do it, and all of that money is going to flow through into the real economy. That increase in money can lead to inflation. One of the best places to be invested when there is inflation is not in a bank account that's not earning any interest. One of the better places to be is in assets that are able to keep up with or exceed inflation. One good example of that is in shares of companies. Why does a share in a company at least keep pace with inflation? Well, if you think of Tesco and the supermarkets, it doesn't matter if the price of what they purchase to sell goes up, they will simply pass that price on to their consumer. And so the business itself doesn't get impacted, but the consumers do. And so investing in assets that are able to protect against inflation is exactly where you want to be, and a diversified portfolio of those type of assets can help to protect and grow wealth over the long term.
Perfect, bro. So the next question we've got is, I think a lot of people will be thinking this, is how do you make sure that when you do die, the wealth that you've created in your life How do you make sure that that goes to your children instead of the government?
I'll take this one. So it's a bit of a legal matter. It's important to make sure that you've got a will in place so that in the event of your death, the government, or sorry, the people that you've left behind know how you wanted to pass your wealth on and who to. In addition, when it comes to your pensions, this is a separate matter. You need to complete what's known as the expression of wishes or nomination of beneficiaries form, where you actually tell the pension provider who you would like the money in the pension to be passed on to. It's only in the event where if you die intestate, as it's called, where you don't have a will, where there's a prescribed method of how the government will actually distribute the funds and who it goes to. So if you ever look at that and think that's not really what I want, then it's really important to make sure that you get a will in place to sort that out.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So this is one from Jackie. So in terms of work pensions, because I know we touched upon the pensions, if you're someone who switched jobs a fair few times, is there a benefit in consolidating these all together?
Thanks, Jackie. There's pros and cons to these. One of the pros is that all of your pension pot is in one place for you to monitor. Most of pension providers provide online access these days or apps for you to log on and have a look at. One of the other benefits of doing that is also you've got a single investment strategy for all of your monies. Whereas typically, if you've accrued pensions from all over the place during your career, they'll be invested in very different ways, which actually may not be suitable for you. One of the things to consider, I'm not going to go as far as calling it a drawback, but it's charges. So you might find that typically some of the older pensions might have higher charges than the more modern ones, which use modern systems to operate themselves. And that's one of the things to consider. And again, typically you'll find that pension companies these days, especially your workplace pensions, do offer an online service where you can just type the information in and it will can take care of that transfer or consolidation exercise for you. Alternatively, if you wanted someone to go through it with you with some expertise, then please do get in touch with us. That's one of the more common pieces of work that we get involved in at Tilney.
Another one from Jag. So if I put my investment into an ISA, are there periods of time you can take the money out? Could I take out money in increments instead of all at once?
Yeah, I'll pick this one up. So Jag, if you've got a cash ISA or a stocks and shares ISA, you are able to put money in and take it out. And you can do that both as, a regular income if you wanted to, or a lump sum. And it doesn't have to be the whole amount. It can be as much or as little as you want. The thing is with the lifetime ISA that I mentioned earlier, because there's so much incentive with a 25% bonus, there is a restriction on how you can take that money out. So typically it's either for you're about to buy a house and this is part of the deposit that you're going to fund, use to fund it. And, if you decided, or if you've already got a house and you've decided to use the lifetime ISA for the pension side of things and to use in your later life, then these are accessible from the age of 60. And basically what you can do then is you'll be able to access it then. But with the lifetime ISA specifically, that one does have a restriction. Also with ISAs, even the cash ones, some of them do have fixed term. So they might offer you a term of, I don't know, should we say 1% for a 1-year period. And so if you were to break that, then you won't get the same amount of interest as what they promised and what you'd agreed to. So it's just important to make sure that you know the type of ISA that you're in.
Perfect. Someone from Sabbath. So when looking for a financial/pension advisor, what are the main things to look out for when you're looking for a good one?
Oh, wow. Important. Make sure that they're actually regulated. So you can go onto the financial companies register and actually look up financial advisors and make sure that they're regulated and or authorized, as it were. But if you were to go onto a financial advisor's company website, there should be a financial company number, which is their registration number, which you can then look up. But I mean, there's so many options out there. Obviously, Tilney, great place to come. As I say, we offer a range of solutions in that regard. But there's lots of Google type search engines that can help help find a financial advisor near you. And as I say, they often offer a range of services for different client types, really. So yeah, lots of choice out there.
I think just to add to that as well, and I know there's a question coming up about softer skills. So many financial advisors and investment managers out there will lead with a product and try and sell you a product and why you might need it. But we think it should be the other way around, and that we should get to understand you as a person and your desires, objectives, goals, and aims for your life and what you want to achieve with your money before we even talk about how we can achieve it. And I think that that's a really important consideration as well. You should be put first in the whole process.
Perfect, thank you. So another question is, so how do you suggest it's best to get involved with investing in company shares?
Oh, well, I think it depends, how much you've got to invest, and as Tom says, how much risk you're willing to take. And whether I guess you want to have a bit of a dabble in terms of having a go yourself, which is something what we call execution only. And to say our Best Invest platform, I think there's going to be a link, a follow-up email after this, just with some links and some useful information we can share. So our Best Invest platform is somewhere that you could go on and you could open your own investment account and just start to look at that. We have a lot of fund investment research on there as well, so lots of hints and tips and ideas for doing that. But also, as Tom says, we have ready-made portfolios that you can invest in. So let us do the hard work for you. You just decide how much risk you want to take. But as Tom said, we make those ready-made, fully diversified portfolios, which means you're kind of protecting the downside as well as the up. If there's anything to add there, Tom, on that?
I'd just say that if you do have a pension, then you've already started and got involved with investing, and so probably that is a relatively large asset for you. There will definitely be some money in there. Go and check it out, see what you're invested in there before you start thinking about what can you do outside of your pension as well.
Perfect, thank you both. So another one from Jag. So if inflation is predicted at 3% every year, then why would putting money in a fixed term savings account, which is most likely far below this?
Yeah, I think the start point is that your emergency fund and your shorter term savings are coming up soon. And so you need to make sure that you've got the cash there ready for it. And it doesn't really matter what interest rate you're going to get in your bank on them. What matters more is protecting that money and making sure it's there when you need it. For anything longer term, completely agree. Why, for things that have got a 40-year time horizon, for example, would you accept an interest rate below inflation when there are options out there in diversified portfolios to at least protect against inflation and hopefully grow ahead of it as well? But it is about not only building a diversified portfolio of investments, but a diversified portfolio of bank accounts and investment accounts for yourself, so that you can have all of your different needs and requirements that are coming up covered, so you can sleep at night, really.
Perfect, thank you, Tom. So this question is from Tom Smith. Is it possible to hold a lifetime ISA with the same bank as your Help to Buy ISA?
That's a good question. I'm not sure you're able to have both at the same time. I'll have to take that one away and get back to you if that's okay. Unless Lucy, do you have the answer for this?
No, we can follow up with Tom afterwards. Yeah, we can get that confirmed.
Yeah, that'd be good. So one from Mikkel. So I also I heard also about counting a net value each year in terms of assets like house, cash, liabilities like cars, mortgage. it is clear how to evaluate, quantify skills, qualifications, etc.
It's so important, and I am probably at the extreme end of this spectrum, and I have a tracker on an Excel spreadsheet where I go in each month and put the values of things and add it all up and see how I'm getting on. And I've got lots of nice graphs in there to track it all. So I'm a bit of a sado when it comes to things like that. But what it has proven to me is that tracking and being aware of where your money is going and how it's hopefully growing over time is a really powerful thing. It gives me motivation to keep going at it, to keep saving instead of going out and buying a new pair of AirPods, for example. And the hard thing, though, is that they are all just the hard assets, the things that I actually own. As young professionals, our greatest asset is our human capital and our ability to continue to earn for the next 40 years. And it's almost impossible to actually put a proper value on it now, because as Khaled mentioned, who knows what's going to happen in life? We might be a 25-year-old with great future prospects, and I'm not particularly careful when I cross the road, might get hit by a bus tomorrow and not be able to work another day in my life. And so having the types of protection that Khaled was speaking about can protect against that. And so whilst human capital is a real thing, it's very hard to value and put on a spreadsheet in the same way that I can each month with my net worth statement.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. So, I mean, that's all the questions we have. I think just give it like 30 more seconds. If you do have a question, please pop it in the box. But I mean, in the meantime, Tom, Lucy, Khaled, thank you very much for taking part in this. I've found it very, very useful. And as I said, it's kind of kickstarted me a little bit to actually get in gear a little bit, which is good.
No problem.
Fantastic.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
having
very
us.
much.
Join the call. As I say, we'll, as I say, we'll share our details afterwards. I think via an email, something will come round. If you've got any questions at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch with one of us. We'd be delighted to hear from you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Tom Smith, if you do want to answer that question, please do feel free to get in touch with the guys. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Super. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
It's
Take
been
care.
our pleasure. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.